Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar 260th virtual webinar OHSMS Industrial Safety Series Factories Act. My name is Piyush and I'm the host for the day. Agenda for Sadgun Sang Meet. Virtual inauguration by Dr. Sundar Kataria. Invoking the blessings of deity, chanting of Gayatri Mantra. Introduction of speaker by Mr. Yogesh Chandekar. Presentation by Yogesh Chandekar. Question answer session and closing session. Dr. Sundar Kataria, Chairman, Managing Director, ICS Group Companies. Sadgun Sang, conceived and led by Dr. Sundar Kataria, driven with a mission to elevate the quality, safety, and environmental awareness level of industries. Sadgun Sang is a series of educative, informative events aiming to illuminate professional and possible solutions to current issues of industry and economy. Designation as organization, Chairman, Managing Director, International Certificate Service Private Limited. Academic qualification, Mechanical Engineer, AIM, Honor Doctorate Business Management. Experience, nuclear rep. He started his career in building Indian first nuclear power plant at Rawatbhatta, Kota, Rajasthan. Oil as gas, EIL. He contributed in developing Indian first oil as gas field at Bombay High since its inception. DNV. He was a head of industry and offshore development with DNV for 2 decades. ICS. He's a founder of First Indian Conformity Assessment and inspection body known as International Certification Service Private Limited, which is a provider of total quality solution under single umbrella with a wide spectrum of service. His achievement and awards. Lifetime Achievement Award of NACE Corcon, received several national international awards.
शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Please join us for recitation of Gayatri Mantra.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Yes. Yes, right. Stop recording.
Yes, sir.
Inspector in Chief of the Bombay Cotton Department, and full screen. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the this session for the Factories Act 1948 and its rules. Basically, we started this occupational health and safety management system, and we have various sessions. So this session is dedicated for the Factories Act 1948 and rules. So this Factories Act and rule, it's a very vast. You can imagine the acts and number of rules. There are more than 120 rules are there. So it is very difficult to cover the entire act requirement or rule requirement in this session, but somehow we will touch upon the important rules or the provisions in the act for the health and safety. That is our topic, occupational health and safety. So we'll touch upon a few of them in detail and overview of how what is act, what is the rule, and how the rules are implemented, whose responsibilities, and what are the provisions in the rule. So let us go to the background, the history. We have to go in the 18th century, the 19th century, where the initiative was taken by Major Moore. So he was the inspector in chief of the Bombay Cotton Department, and because of the cotton industry, many factories were there. And in his report in 1870 to 73, he raised some issues related to the working conditions in the factories. So these working conditions are basically about the infrastructure, about the facilities given to the workers, their working hours, their condition in which they are working. So those issues were raised in his report, and he has recommended for some legislative provisions to regulate the working conditions in the factories. So this first Factories Act was enacted in 1881 in India. So the Factories Act, of course, the British were ruling that time, and in 1881, some provisions were made, especially for the working conditions in the factories. So this act, the Factories Act, first enacted in 1881, and then after the recommendation of the Royal Commission on Labor. So then this when the Factories Act came into existence, it was for working conditions, and the other aspects were not covering that. So there were separate acts at that time. So this was studied by a commission on labor led by a Royal Commission on Labor, and they have recommended certain things covering not only the working conditions but overall health, safety, welfare of the workers, and the other aspects also which are required for a good factory work environment, as well as in benefit of the workers. So the first, then after 1934, the earlier legislations with regard to the factories, whatever there, those were replaced with the Factories Act 1934. So the 1934, you can say the first step towards the Factories Act in 1934. Then after independence, the Factories Act 1948 was passed by the Constituent Assembly on August 28, 1948. So then it was the Government General of India, he has accepted it on 23rd September 1948, and it came into force from 1st April 1949. So this act, though it was a background, the Factories Act 1934, but After independence, it is changed to the Factories Act 1948. There were so many amendments in the Act. The major amendments are taken in 1949, 1950, 1951, 1954. So based upon the feedback from the organizations, feedback from the union trades, and the conditions, various earlier it was restricted to the only few of the companies which are owned by the government. So ample space was there, ample facilities can be provided from the government. But when the private sector started, then the requirements are amended considering the private sector also. And the last amendment was done in 1987. So this is about the background of the Factories Act. When we come to the Factories Act, so this Act of 1948 is administered by the Ministry of Labor and Employment in India. So they are the owners for the Act. They have passed this Act and they are administering it through the DG Fastly. So that is the Directorate General Factory Advice Service and Labor Institute. So this is they are implementing or monitoring this Act, the following of the Act by the companies or organizations by DG Fastly and by the state governments through their factory inspectors. So each state have the factory inspectorate and they monitor the compliance to the Factories Act and the rules by the led by the state government. So this DG Fastly advises central and state governments on administration of the Factories Act and coordinating the factory inspection services in the states. So they also getting the feedbacks from the states through the inspectors, and they also recommend for the changes or the amendment required in the Factories Act. So DG Fastly plays a very vital role, and they also coordinate between the central and state any disputes between the state or any clarification required. So DG Fastly plays very important vital role in the Factories Acts and rules. Now coming to the Act and rules. So just to make you aware about what is the Act and what is the rules, because there is and it follows for all the Act and rules. So the term Act refers to the statutes created by the legislature. So any draft made, so the draft for the Act is made, then it is discussed in the Parliament, and it has to be passed by the both houses of the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So you can heard or read so many about the acts. Those were taken up in the sessions, and the discussions going on, some issues raised. Then it is also made public to get the feedback from the concerned authorities or concerned stakeholders, and then after it has to be passed by from both the houses, and it is also should be approved by the president. So once it is passed from the Parliament, it is put up to the Honorable President of India, and once he accepts it, once he approves it, then it becomes a law, and that is called the Act. So this is about the Act, and Act is the intention of the law, and that describes the Act describes the applicability. This Act is applicable to, what is the applicability limit, to whom this is applicable. Then certain definitions related to the Act, where some nomenclatures are there. So there should not be any ambiguity. So definitions are there. Then governing provisions. So who will govern, who is regulating authority, who will monitor. So entire that structure is given in the Act, and the fine and penalty if someone deviates from these requirements. So what should be the fine, who is authorized to fine, and what is the nature, and how it will be dealt with. So this is the intention of law, and describes this much only. Now further to that, each state will have its rules. And now what is the rules? Rules to that Act, a particular Act. This contains the standard methods or procedure which will be related to the provision which is contained in the Act. So it is basically the framework for how the act will be, what are the provisions, what are the requirements, what are the powers given by the act, to whom those powers are given, and the states have been acting independently to impose the law through their respective rules. So ideally, each state will have their own rules. That is like Maharashtra rules, Maharashtra factories rules. Then Gujarat state will have Gujarat rules. Andhra Pradesh will have Andhra Pradesh rules. Some or the other way, the requirements will be common, or some may be changed. Some of the requirements may change, and it is solely responsibility of the state to identify and implement that rule. In what way, what should be the requirements, and it should govern the law. So summarize this, what the act is, an official copy of the statute or regulation that is initially present in the form of bill of parliament, and it is verified and approved and to make a law. And in contact to the act, rules define the guidelines, how the act will be implemented, how the act provisions in the act will be monitored, and who are the regulatory authorities, and what are the powers given to them, and the penalties if deviations are happen. So these rules are the guidelines for successful implementation of the provision given in the law. So this act is applicable to all of India, and rules are made by the states, and these rules are applicable to per particular state only. So the Maharashtra rules will be applicable within Maharashtra only. So state governments have their own rules under the Factories Act 1948. So just to understand what exactly the act and rule. Say for example, the section 34 of the act, that act is for the excessive height. So excessive height is the working at height. So the provision in act is, no person shall be employed in a factory to lift, carry or move any load as to be likely to cause him injury. This is the statement given in the act. So this should be followed, or this should be complied. But with this requirement, the state government will have the rules. For example, rule number 36 of the Maharashtra factories rules is given the requirements for the section 34 for the excessive weight. So here the Maharashtra factory rule says that no person unaided by other person or mechanical aid be required or allowed to lift, pull down, carry or move any load of material, article, tools or applicable exceeding the maximum limit. So here the act will say only about the provision and the requirements given in the rule. So the requirement is that for adult male, he should not lift, pull down or carry or move more than 55 kg. If 55 kg is the limit set by this rule against this provision in the act, section 34, excessive weight. And for the adult female, it is 30 kg. So likewise, the act will have provisions, but actually the rule will have the exact conditions for, or the provisions against that provision, what are the limits, especially the condition and limit are given in the rules. Further, so these acts and rules, basically the Factories Act came into existence with few of the objectives, main objectives. So this Factories and Act is dedicated to regulate the working condition in the factories, and with associated that the welfare or the health and safety of the worker. So it is also to regulate the working hours, that is 48 hours per week and 1 holiday in a week and 8 hours working. Then it again have the objective to protect the health of the worker by providing drinking water, sufficient latrine, urinals, proper drainage system, adequate lighting, ventilation, temperature, etc. So these provisions are given to protect the health of the workers. Then again, to provide the safety of the workers, the health and safety, providing safety of the workers by like providing the provisions like machinery should be fenced, no young person shall work at any dangerous machine in confined space, and the working conditions related to the safety, like noise and other requirements. So basically, the objective of the Factories Act is again for the welfare of the workers. It takes care about the working conditions, then the health of the worker, safety of the worker, then the welfare of the workers. Welfare of the workers is also very important to motivate the worker to for the better productivity, less accidents. The welfare of the workers is also very important, like the facilities for storing and drying clothes, facilities for sitting, first aid appliances, shelter, restroom, lunchrooms, and like that. So it is within the factory premises. Some provisions are given for under the welfare of the workers, and again the objective is also for levying penalties. If the provisions under the Act are violated, then it is treated as an offense and penalties are levied as specified in the Act. So it talks about the conditions, working conditions, employee health, employee health or the safety and the welfare of the workers, along with the levying the penalties for the violation of this Act. Then coming to the applicability, very important. It also the Factories Act 1948, the applicability is straightway given. This is applicable to the factories, and the definition of the factory is given in these two para. First is the applicable to any factory whereon 10 or more workers are working or working on any day of the preceding 12 months. This sentence is very important because the factory term, applicability of the factory term to any organization, it depends upon the number of workers working, and that too with the aid of the power or without aid of the power. So the first condition, with the aid of the power, the factory, it is applicable to the factory having more than 10 or more than 10 workers, and it is not as on today, it is considered for the preceding 12 months on any working day. If they are more than 10 or 10 or more than 10, then the Factories Act is applicable to that organization. Similarly, where the organizations they work without the aid of the power, then this Act is applicable to factory whereon 20 or more workers are working. So here the important is the number of workers, then the working of the organization with the aid of the power or without aid of the power, and that again the preceding 12 months. Normally what happens whenever if you consider any of the small scale or micro organization, they say that we are not under the Factories Act. So this is derived whether this Factories Act is applicable to them or not. This is decided with these two statements. With the aid of the power, maximum you will find the power for the manufacturing activities, power is used. So in that case, 10 or more workers. So this is very important, and the Factories Act requirements are applicable to them only who fit under this criteria. Of course, exclusion is also there. This Factories Act is not applicable to a mine, to a mobile unit belonging to the armed forces of the Union. It is also not applicable to the railway running sheds or a hotel, restaurant, or eating place. So these are the exclusions wherein you may find the under this whatever the definitions of the Factory Act, this definition is also applicable to this, but these are excluded from the Factories Act. So other than this, considering the Factories Act applicability, if it falls under this criteria, then the Factories Act is applicable. Now coming to the important definitions, there are many definitions, but we will just touch upon few of the important definitions. The first and foremost definition is the occupier. Occupier is the person who has ultimate control over the affairs of the factory. So whenever if the organization is a partnership, then the partners are considered as an occupier by the definitions of the Factories Act. If it is a public limited company, then the directors of the organization, they are the occupiers as per the Factories Act. And if it is a government establishment, state government or the central government, then the topmost person or the person who is having the overall control for that particular installation or for that particular department or that particular office, he is the occupier as per the definitions of the Factory Act. So this occupier is very important. There are certain requirements, there are provisions in the for the duties of the occupier. He has to what are the duties of the occupier, and then if any penalty is levied, the penalty is directly upon the occupier. So this occupier is very important, and he is considered because he has the ultimate control over the affairs of the factory. So whatever requirements, he is the person who can actually implement the Factories Act and rule within the organization. He has the ultimate control and authority. So he is considered the main person from the organization point of view or from the factory point of view for applying, maintaining the requirements, following the requirements, and if any penalty is levied, it is on the occupier. Then the factory, we have seen last the definition of the factory with power 10 or more than 10 workers, and without power 20 or more than 20 workers. So this is called the factory. Now worker means a person employed directly or by or through an agency, including a contractor. That means if a factory, if an organization, they are employing the contractual employees. So that contractual employee is also considered as a worker if he is working within the premises and with or without the knowledge of the principal employer, where the remuneration or not in any manufacturing process or any cleaning any part of the machinery or premises used for a manufacturing process. It is not only those are working in for a manufacturing directly on machines, but the persons who are required or who are there for cleaning of the machinery or even the premises. So those are also called the worker. So it is indirectly the persons who are working within that premises, all are workers, whether they are connected with the manufacturing processes or not connected with the manufacturing process. So all these are termed as worker as per the definition of the Factories Act. Then the competent person. The competent person is very important. There are three persons most important within the Factories Act. First is the inspector. So the chief inspector, these are nominated by the state governments, and the district magistrate, he is the inspector for his district, and other than that, the government, state government can nominate persons as a chief inspector considering this position and these his powers. Then the second important person is the certifying surgeon. He is the qualified medical practitioner recognized by the state government as a certifying surgeon. Most of the times the district civil hospital, the civil surgeon of the civil hospital, he is by default the certifying surgeon. Other than that, the state government can also nominate other persons as a certifying surgeon, and their roles are also very important. In case of any incident, accident, or about for the notified diseases, their recommendations is considered for they are the persons who are actually authorized for recommendation for the facts about the worker and the incident happened, if any injury happened. So the certified surgeon is the second person, and the third person is the competent person. Competent person is a person or an institute recognized by the chief inspector for the purpose of carrying out test, examination, and inspections required to be done in a factory. So certain tests like the lifting, tools, tackles, then cranes, and the other machinery like pressure vessels, the air compressor, receivers, and all that. So the testing is important, examination and testing, and those persons are nominated by the chief inspector considering their qualification and experience. Those are called the competent persons. So certain provisions, certain test and examination need to be taken up by the competent person only, not by the other agencies or any other person. Then like day means a period of 24 hours beginning at the midnight for a uniformity within the India. It starts at midnight. Then week means a period of 7 days beginning at midnight on the Saturday. And here it is also left open for the state to consider any other nights as may be approved by writing for a particular area of the chief inspector. So some may consider weekly off because of the load shedding and all that. So it is the authority of the chief inspector to consider the weekly off and the next day as the start of the week. So it is left to the state government, and the state government, it is given power to the chief inspector to consider a week, start day of the week and end of the week. It is, but it will be a 7 days beginning at the midnight of the Saturday night, but it can be changed by the chief inspector. Then the power is very important from the definition of the Factories Act. Which company or which organization will fall under the Factories Act? The power is very important, and power means electrical energy or any other form of energy which is mechanically transmitted and is not generated by human or animal agency. So it is particularly for the organizations who are using the power, it is considered as the electrical. If they are using electrical energy, it is considered power. But the power generated by the human or animal agency, that is not considered as a power as per the definition to consider the applicability of the Factories Act. These were the important definitions. Now coming to the provisions of the Factories Act. Now there are provisions given under the chapters. There are various chapters in the Factories Act, 1 to 11 chapters. And these chapters are like, the first is the preliminary. It talks about the definitions and the powers and all this. Then second is the inspecting staff. So like the inspectors, nominated inspectors, the chief inspectors, then additional joint inspectors. So there is a hierarchy, and each one has a different role to play for the implementing and maintaining and verifying the provisions given in the Act. So the inspecting staff, then the certifying surgeons, then the competent persons. So all these, their duties, their responsibilities, their authorities. So all these given in the inspecting staff. That is the chapter number 2. And the chapter number 3 is for the health. So various topics are covered in this. Again, that chapter, there are different sections, and each section, the health will have different sections, and the provisions are particularly dedicated to the health of the workers. So the provisions given in the Act covered in the chapter 3 are for the health, and for the chapter 4 it is for the safety of the workers working within the factory premises. So we will see in detail about this health and safety, what are those sections, and few of them in detail for the health and safety. The fifth one is the welfare. That is again very important, and the few of the requirements I also told you. Those requirements, those provisions are also given under the chapter number 5 for welfare. Then chapter number 6 is dedicated for the working hours of the audit. 7th is the employment of young persons. 8 is the annual leave with wages. This is also covered in the Factories Act. Then the special provisions. some of the exceptional cases, and some of the provisions, special provisions considering the specific industry or a particular industry. Some more specific provisions are given, also given in the Factories Act considering the industry. And 10th is the penalties and procedure, and 11th is the supplemental. Supplemental is nothing but the amendments in the act that is given in the supplemental. And 10th, that 10th chapter is also very important, the penalties and procedures. Penalties, under what circumstances or under which conditions the violation is considered, for which of the conditions, and what are the penalties, and who is authorized to levy that penalty, who is authorized to investigate, who is authorized to levy penalty, and who is authorized to recover if something is recovered from the occupier. So that procedure is given for the different kind of penalties. We will also see a few of the penalties and what are the provisions under if those some of the requirements are violated. So that penalties and procedure we will see in detail. So now coming to the our today's topic, the provisions for health, that is covered in the chapter 3. And under this health, provision of health, chapter 3, the total 10 sections are there. The cleanliness, the requirements or the provision for the cleanliness, disposal of the waste and effluents generated within the plant premises, then the ventilation and temperature. So it is specifically talking about the working conditions, the conditions on which the workers are working. Ventilation and temperature, very important from the worker health point of view. Then the dust and fumes, that is again, if in a industry or in an organization, if dust is generated because of the manufacturing process, fumes are generated. For example, the fumes, welding fumes generated in the fabrication or welding. So fumes are generated, dust, if the dust and fumes are generated, then the what are the provisions? So that are the provision given in the against 4. Then 5th is the artificial humidification. So where some dry areas there, the humidification because of the process, some humidification is like the cotton industry. So humidification, artificial humidification is required. So what are the conditions? What should be the provisions and conditions for the worker working within the area which is artificially humidified? So those provisions are given there. Then overcrowding. Then the lighting where the workers are working in the plant premises. It talks about the receipt area, storage area, different level of lux level is required, different for different areas. So the provisions are given for the lighting, working area, machining area, inspection area, then the toilet area. So all these, wherever the workers are moving, the sufficient lights are required. That lighting provisions in different sections, areas, or the departments, that is given under the lighting. Then drinking water. So drinking water is also very important. The provisions also given. We will see the detail, what exactly the requirements about the detail drinking water. Then latrines and urinals. Like latrines, if 10 or more workers are there, then at least one latrine should be there. And in proportion, if the number of employees are increased, for within up to 50, it should be 2. Likewise, the requirements are given for latrine as well as for urinals also. So up to the 50 workers, one urinal is sufficient, and more than 50, you should have more urinals depending upon the number of employees or workers working within that plant premises. Again, the locations, that is also given. Then spit-ons is also given. So it covers the health, basically covers these are the some of the important provisions. And in detail about this, for example, if we see the section 30s of the Factories, 13 of the Factories Act, and that is for the ventilation and temperature. So in that ventilation and temperature, it is mentioned that the worker working in a working area, it should be well ventilated, and the temperature should be conducive for the working working in that particular area. So it is just a provision. This should be taken care. Then how it is should be taken care, that is given in the rule. So whatever the rules I have considered the Maharashtra rules, and the as per the Maharashtra rule number 22A for the ventilation and temperature, it is defined as the maximum wet bulb temperature of air at height of 1.5 meter above the ground floor level should not exceed 30 degrees Celsius. So the rule specifies the condition. For the temperature, it is clearly mentioned that at a height of 1.5 meter of the floor level, it should not exceed 30 degrees Celsius. So the 30 degree is the limit given. And this 30 degrees is considered as a comfortable temperature for worker working in at any particular area. So 30 degrees is considered. Further to that, air movement, like for ventilation, it is mentioned as at least 30 meters per minute shall be provided. Air movement for at least 30 meters per minute. And third is very important is the refresh air. The fresh air should be equivalent to at least 6 times the cubic capacity of workroom. So 6 times cubic capacity of the workroom. It should be a mechanical means of ventilation in an hour. That means the entire area, the air of a particular area, that should be replaced within 1 hour with at least 6 times the cubic capacity of that work. So this take care about the ventilation. So ideally, this whatever the factory, the organization who are falling under the Factories Act within the state of Maharashtra, they should follow these requirements regarding the temperature and ventilation. So the occupier should ensure that the temperature and the ventilation given as per this rule at working areas. So it may be different for different shops, different processes, but these are the limits. Less than that is also acceptable, but this should not be exceed, or minimum if 6 times, at least 6 times cubic capacity, it has to be. More than that is accepted, but it should not be less than what the provision given in the rules. Similarly, for example, drinking water. The section 18 of the Factory Act that covers the drinking water. It is that the provision of the drinking water should be made for the workers. It may be the requirement given or provision given in the Act, but the rule specifies about the quantity, that is at least 5 liters a day per worker employed in a factory, and shall be readily available at all times during working hours. So the rules specifies how much drinking water should be made available to the per worker. Then again, the drinking water quality, it should be as per IS 1050, and the testing of the drinking water should be at least once in 6 months from a government approved laboratory. So it takes care about the quality of the drinking water. So it should be, the sample should be taken from the taps, not from the tanks where the water is stored, but it should be taken from the taps where the workers are actually taking the water, drinking water. So the sample should be taken at least once in a 6 months, and it has to be tested by the government approved lab. And there is also provision about reporting the annual statement to the chief inspector, but each organization about the performance, safety performance. So in that, they have to declare that yes, we have tested the drinking water every 6 monthly, and they have to submit the report or the test results in their annual statement to the chief inspector for that state. It is not that it is monitored by the annual statement. So it is the occupier's responsibility to make the drinking water available at least 5 liters a day per worker, with a quality meeting the requirements of IS 10500, and at least one water center shall be provided. It talks about the availability of the drinking water nearby to the workplace. So at least one water center. It may be a water cooler, or it may be a jar, but it should be available on each floor if the factories have more than one floor. or if it has different shades, then each shade should have one water center provision for the drinking water. Similarly, for the health, one more that is important. I am covering the important provisions and important topic, the sections which are common and more important from the audit point of view as well as for the occupier point of view. These are the basic requirements given in this Factories Act. Third is regarding the noise. So noise, this is section 18 and the schedule 24 of the special provision. So for the noise, the factories rules for the Maharashtra state, they have the special provision in their rules. And for the noise, the condition are that the exposure should not be more than 115 dB within the plant premises. So worker should not be exposed more than 115 decibel noise level, and it is again calculated for 8 hours working. So the next slide is this slide provides the exposure limit per day. If a worker is working continuously 8 hours at particular work area, in that work area, surrounding area, the noise level should not be more than 90 decibel. So this is the limit set for worker working in continuously 8 hours. If it is again the noise, it is depend upon the exposure, to what extent the worker is exposed for that. And when the exposure limit is reduced, the noise level can be increased. The exposed noise level can be increased. Like if a worker is working at particular machine for only 2 hours, then he can be exposed up to a sound level of 100 decibel. So as you increase, if the sound level is increased in a particular area, if sound level is more, then your exposure time should be less. So you can have engineering controls, you can have administrative controls like rotating of the workers. So in a particular area, if the noise level is more than that, more than if it is the noise level is, say for example 100 decibel, then the worker working in that particular area should not be exposed more than 2 hours. So 2 hours is the set limit. And if the noise level is 115 decibel, then the worker should work there only for 15 minutes. Then after he should be taken out from that particular area where sound is 115 decibel, and more than that it is not allowed. So this chart provides the exposure hours in a particular sound level area. So it is the administrative, the occupied, and to minimize the noise level, he should have some engineering controls, or he should exercise the administrative controls like the exposure, to regulate the exposure time of the employee. So whenever the workers working in higher noise area, he should be exposed as per this area limits given in the sound level. And in case if the worker is still in working this particular area, he should be provided with the ear plugs or ear plugs, because in that sound level, though it is permissible level, it is always advisable to reduce the impact by using the personal protective equipment like the ear plugs. So these are the noise level given. Of course, these limits are for the Maharashtra factories in Maharashtra. More or less, these limits are same, but it is different. So whenever you are referring Factories Act or rules applicability, you should consider the rules for the state under which the organization is. So it is not that these limits are applicable for all states, it is for the Maharashtra state. Now coming to the provision for safety, there are so many provisions given in the Factories Act for the safety, like the fencing of machineries, like if the machinery is having the belts for the transmitting of the power, or chains or pulleys, so these must be fencing. Those must be protected for exposure of the to the worker. Then work or near the machinery in motion. So there should be some protection to the worker. Some provisions are also given for the machines, rotary machines. Then the striking your device to cut off the power. In case of emergency, the worker should have given provision to stop the machine immediately by cutting off the power. So in cotton industry, there are many industries where accident can happen by some body part within in the machinery, in moving machinery area. So in that case, you should have provision to immediately stop the machine. So that provision also given. Then safe acting machines. Then the casing for a new machinery. Prohibition of employment of worker, women and children near cotton of openers. Then hoist and lifts, the lifting machines, chains, ropes, lifting tackles, their inspection, their testing, their condition. These are the provisions given in this. Then the revolving machinery, pressure plants where the pressure vessels are used for storage of gases or air or any other liquid. Then the floors, stairs, means of access, emergency exits. Then the condition of the floors, stairs, walkways. So these provisions are given on the safety, like pits, sumps, openings, floors, excessive weight, protection of eyes, precautions under dangerous fumes or gases, provisions regarding use of portable electric light, exposure to the flammable dust, gases. All these are provisions given in this chapter number 4 for provisions for safety, and each provision will have section and the requirements under the act, and the rules will specify the conditions for the safety conditions or the limits set for to ensure the safety in the workplace area. Further, the safety officers, that is also very important. The organizations working more than 500 employees, they should have the safety officers, or the factories who are having dealing with the hazardous processes, or those factories which come under the hazardous chemical rules. So they should have designated safety officers, qualified safety officers. That requirements are also given in the provisions for safety in chapter number 4. So let us see a few of the like health. Let us see a few of the safety requirements. I have covered the rule number 64, Maharashtra Factories rule number 64, that come under the section 29 of the Factory Act. It is the requirements for the lifting machine, chain, ropes, and lifting tackles. The now rule says that all chains, slings, or hook shackles used for lifting the material or transferring from the material, that should be inspected by competent person at least once in every 6 months. So this is the requirement given in the rule, and whatever the chains, slings, whatever the capacity, they should be inspected at least once in 6 months by a competent person. Then the chains, slings, hooks, shackles, in general, these are for manufacturing processes, and in general this can be inspected once in 12 months. And a form 11 containing the particulars about the testing and inspection and testing by the competent person, that requirements, what test to be conducted, what inspection to be conducted by the competent person, that is given under the form 11, and that should be made available for the inspection. That means the occupier should get all the chains, slings, and hook shackles as per the defined frequency from the competent person. The competent person will report his findings in the form 11, and the occupier should have this form 11, and if the chief inspector demand it, he should provide it immediately. He should make it readily available to the inspector whenever any factory visit of the inspector. So these are the some of the rule requirements for the lifting machine chains. Similarly, for the pressure vessels, where pressure vessels like the air receivers or the reactors under pressure. So the pressure vessels should be thoroughly examined again by the competent person, externally with a period of 6 months, internally once in 12 months, and hydraulic, it should be hydraulically tested once in 4 years. So these are the requirement for the pressure vessels or the pressure plants, where the product or the gases or liquids are stored more than the atmospheric pressure. So this, for that, form 11 is there, what test to be conducted, and the reporting is done by the competent person in the form 11. Again, it should be readily available to the inspector. So likewise, for each provision in the safety, certain rule requirements are there. They need to be studied. They need to be taken care by the occupier by providing the infrastructure or facilities. Or we should also should have the monitoring, ongoing monitoring for the conditions, the safety conditions within the plant premises. There should be a surveillance by conducting the safety audits, safety inspections, and safety briefing to the workers before start of the work. So there are so many provisions for the safety under these different sections, and it is the responsibility of the occupier to provide safe work environment to the workers by following the requirements given under different rules. Now coming to the penalties and procedures. So whenever we talk about the organization, and we expect the organization or the occupier to follow the rules and or the requirements given under the rules, so there are chances of violation. These violations may be intentionally or unintentionally. Unintentionally because most of the occupiers or organizations, they are not go through the requirements given in the rules. It is the responsibility of occupier to at least know the requirements. Unless they know the requirement, they will not fulfill the requirements. So this is the very vital or challenging to the industry for the knowing the requirements of the rules. And most of the violations are because of that only, because the rules are not known to the occupiers. They should understand, but the focus is set up the factory, start the operations, start manufacturing, and the entire focus is on manufacturing and maybe the quality of the product. But equally important, the rules requirements given in the factories. The violation will happen only in case you are not aware of the requirements, occupier is not aware of the requirements, and intentionally also because of the cost involved in that. So definitely for the safety, the cost is also involved, because for the safe working environment or for the to ensure the health of the employee, the occupier should invest money to provide the good infrastructure, the facilities, and for the monitoring purpose. The cost is also involved. So the violation will also happen because of intentionally, because of the cost factor. And further, the inspector are authorized to inspect the factory at any time. So the penalties are treated as an offense under certain different conditions. Few conditions are given in the act, and we will also discuss that. But the monitoring the compliance is entirely with the inspector. The occupier is supposed to submit his safety or his performance by submitting the annual return to the chief inspector. That is the format, and under that format, the performance against each rule, what is expected and in what way it should be complied, the evidences for that. Say for example, for the drinking water, it asks for the test report. Like the lifting tool stackers, it asks for the form 11. So likewise, indirectly the factory inspectors monitor the organization performance or their meeting of these requirements through the annual return. And they can also, if suspicious or if required, they can also visit and make the inspection report based on the facts those are identified on the day of inspection. And based on the deviation reported, maybe in the annual return or maybe during the inspector visit, so the violations can be identified. But any violation is treated as an offense, and any violation to the requirements given in the act or rule, the minimum imprisonment for a term which may exceed up to 1 year. And these all penalties are for the occupiers, because he is the responsible person as per the Factory Act to provide the to maintain and the safe health and safety and other requirements. So if any violation happens, he should be imprisoned for 1 year, or a fine may be levied up to 1 lakh rupees, or both fine and imprisonment. So this is the penalty. If any violation provisions under the act is violated, that is treated an offense. So this is directly for the requirements given in the acts and rules. Any deviation is treated as offense, and these penalties are there. Further, enhancement penalty after previous conviction. If the occupier found guilty or found breaching the requirement or the conditions, then if he is levied a penalty for the first time, if it is again found breaching the requirements or breaching the acts provision in the acts, then for the following penalties will be levied: imprisonment of up to 3 years. If the successive, in the second time, if it is again violation as observed, then imprisonment for 3 years, fine up to 2 lakhs, or both fine and imprisonment. So this is the provision given in the Factories Act. If the occupier or the any organization violating the requirements in succession second time. Further, the penalties are also levied in case of the organization is obstructing the inspector. If in case the occupier is not allowing the inspector within the factory premises, he is not providing the details asked by the inspector, or he is providing obstructing inspector to take a round within the plant premises to approach the working conditions. That may also happen if the occupier knows that there is a violation, so he may obstruct the inspector, and the penalty for obstructing the inspector is imprisonment for 6 months, that of course for the occupier, or fine maybe up to 10,000 rupees, or both fine and imprisonment. So the provision is also given for penalty for obstructing inspector. So it is the right of inspector to walk inside the factory premises without any obstruction, and he can go at any location. He can demand any document or record related to the Factories Act, and he can also demand the. He can also take the samples. He can also get it tested, and he can also have exposure, or he can also talk to the employees or workers for the provisions, compliance to these provisions. So obstructing that inspector is an offense. Then penalty is for wrongfully disclosing the result of analysis. That is again a penalty. If suppose the fact is different and you are manipulating the test results, analysis reports, because some of the organizations they may manipulate their test results by showing or by submitting the reports which are not the facts. Actually, there is a violation, but they are manipulating the reports and disclosing the different results which appears or which shows that they are complying the requirements. So these are wrongfully disclosing the results of analysis. This is again attract the penalty of imprisonment for the 6 months, or fine of 10,000 rupees, or fine of both fine and imprisonment. So this is again for the penalty for disclosing the results in analysis. Further, the provision are also given by offenses by the workers. It is not the occupier, it is also for the workers. If any worker employed in a factory controversies any provision of this act or any rules or orders made thereunder, he shall be punishable with a fine which may extend up to 500 rupees. So if violation is from the workers, then in that case the penalty is up to 50,000. And in that case, if is when a worker is convicted for an offense, then the occupier or manager of the factory, he shall be deemed not should not be deemed for the to be guilty unless he is proved that he failed to take all reasonable measures for its prevention. That means the occupier, if he is providing the necessary infrastructure facilities for the safe health or safe working working environment, and even after that, if worker is not following that, he is not adhering to the procedures, he is not adhering to the requirements laid down by the rules, then it is the violation from the worker. And if the reasonable measures are provided by the occupier, then in that case the worker is treated as a is considered for the penalty, and in that case the occupier of the manager of the factory can be is not treated as a guilty in case if everything is provided or everything whatever expected from me is done. So basically these penalties and procedures are rare, but still they are in existence, because as per the act and rules, the penalties and the procedures are followed by the factory inspectors and the civil surgeons and the competent persons who are also responsible to deliver as honestly, because the certifying surgeon's report, his report plays a very vital role to consider the injury or the accident or the benefits to the worker and the violation from the occupier side. So the certifying surgeon as well as the competent person is a very important, and he should submit the facts report the facts, competent person, because the penalty any deviation or if the facts are not there reported, then the accidents or can happen, and then again it will be treated as a violation from the occupier. So the penalties and procedures are also important to maintain or to monitor and regulate the requirements of the requirements given in the Factories Acts and rules. And the organizations, the occupier should adhere these rules, and ideally should document it. He should have the legal register identifying the requirements for this organization, in what way it should be complied, and again the frequency of monitoring. So the ideally that legal register should be prepared by each organization to monitor the requirements to conditions, and whether, and it also should be inspected or audited periodically to ensure that yes, we are meeting the Factories Acts and rules. So it is the occupier's responsibility to monitor and take care if anything is deviating from the requirements. So this, with a short period of time of whatever given to me, I have tried to cover the important requirements of the Factories Act. Tanvi, but still many things are there, many requirements are there under the Factories Act rules. So we stop here, and I will hand it over to Arvind. Any questions you can post, or you can directly ask regarding the Factories Act. Thank you. Over to Arvind.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation and explaining the topic in simplifying way.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
It has modified the rules, then there is no value of the act. So I am
Yes,
little
sir.
bit not clear on this matter. Could you please clear on this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, what happens is the rules are made in line with the requirements.
ICS is pleased to provide you with all research and development, integrated management system, QMS, EMS, OHSMS, excellence in education management. Easy ISO made easy in Gujarati, Marathi, Telugu, Hindi. For reading any of the above book, please contact Ms. Sushma Kinderkar. Feedback form. Please register on www.sadgunsang.org and go in the login and give us a feedback. Thank you for being a part of Sadgunsang on Factories Act 1948. We'll move towards the closing ceremony. Thank you so much, each and every participant. See you in the next session.